Dr. Fletcher. Thank you for talking to us today. I would like, if you would, to just take a little time and explain about the NeoGraft, which is the hair transplant procedure that you offer here at the office.
Thank you, Francine. It's my pleasure to describe all this to you. This is the actual power unit for the hair transplant machine. It's about 3.5 feet tall, and it actually supplies all the power for the hand pieces that actually take the hairs out of the back of your head usually, and then we put them into the front of the head. And this was a complete change when they started using this machine. Before that, they actually cut out strips of your scalp and then wired it back together or sewed it back together, and it left you a scar when it healed. With this one, we take out about 1 out of every 4 hairs individually on the back of your scalp, in between the ears on the back of your head, and it does not leave a scar. So this completely changes everything and provides significant benefits for the patient. There's no scalpel incision, there's no sutures, and there's no linear scar when you use the NeoGraft system. There's very little discomfort, if any. There's some initial slight discomfort when you actually numb the scalp, but after that, not much discomfort. Virtually little downtime. We've done a number of physicians, and most of the physicians were working the very next day. It's safe and effective. We've had no problems with infection, no problems with marked hair loss, etc. It's providing you have a good technician who really understands how hair should look, then it's very natural looking. The various kinds of hair loss you can see here. What most people don't realize, I didn't realize it myself until I became interested in all this about 10 years ago, is that hair loss in women is very common. They just have a very talented way of covering it up, but actually about 40% of our patients that we do hair transplants on are women, and this is true nationwide. And the amount of grafts that you have to use obviously would be greater in this fellow right here than they would be in this fellow right here. But one thing you can depend on is that if you've lost some hair in your life, that you will lose more as time goes on. So it's very important to start taking care of the hair that you have as well as the hair that you may transplant. The hair that you have in the back of your scalp, in between your ears posteriorly, that hair is genetically, in most people, destined to last a lifetime. It's the only hair that doesn't fall out. So that's why you use it to transfer to an area where you need additional hair. This is the old system. This is the system where they actually cut out a strip, and then in this case they sutured it back together. Sometimes they're wired together, sometimes they're sutured together. Then it grows, and if you're a man who wears short hair back here, you can see a scar. You can see it here. This fellow actually has had 2 of them, and so you can see 2 scars. And I'll have to admit that when I was younger and I saw one of these scars, I thought it was a fancy way to do a haircut. I didn't realize that the patient had had a hair transplant. So you don't see a scar like this when you use a NeoGraft. With NeoGraft, we tend to shave it across the back of the scalp, in between the ears really, posteriorly, and we shave it so just enough hair that the hairs themselves stick out like little hairs of your beard, and then it's those little hairs that you place your instrument over, mash a button with your foot, and zoop, magically it takes out that hair along with its roots and puts them into a chamber so that they can be moved and transplanted to another area. And within, it does leave a little red speck on the scalp. Where you take it out, that little red speck disappears in about 5 days. The hair grows out, so in most instances, within a week, you've got hair growing out in this same area. This goes back again to the old style strip where they actually cut the scalp out and it leaves a place that has to be sewed up. And they then take this strip and put it under a microscope. You know, the people are doing that. And then they manually cut it out with a scalpel, trying to get an even hair graft. Now you can see by this that some hairs, some roots have 2 hairs coming out of them, some have 3 hairs coming out of them, some have 1 hair. The ones with 1 hair are the ones that we use most commonly on the very front of your forehead, because they make it look more natural looking, and then you can use the 2 and 3 hair grafts farther back. This person is a young man who had one of these hair graft procedures where they took the strip out some years in the past, and you can see he wears his hair short. When you wear your hair short, then you end up having a scar. In most women that wear their hair long, you would not be able to see that scar, but in a lot of the guys that wear short hair, you will. Here's the actual machine. It's about 3.5 feet tall. It runs on, the machine part of it runs on electricity, but the actual power unit is run by air. And this is the unit that you use to take the little grafts out. This is the part that you fit over the hair, and then when you mash the button with your foot, it takes out the hair, root and all, shoots it through this tube back into this chamber. Then this is another piece that you can actually suck that graft up in this, and using the same power unit, and then you lay it up to the hole that you make in the front of your scalp, hit another button, and it will actually put it in. So you can put it in with this machine, or you can put it in with a scalpel. We can't tell any difference as far as success rate goes. This is a young man who had his forehead had extended way back. You're supposed to have an indent here. That's a sign that you do have testosterone. It's just not supposed to be that great. And then his hair had become very thin all the way back, starting back up here toward the front. So what we do at first is with the patient and with our design experts, then we figure out where we want the hairline to be. And this area right here that has a double line, that's where we would use the grafts that have one root, 1 hair coming out of them. And then back in here you could use any that you wanted to. And then we're going to put them in here, starting my new hairline, then down here, and then go back with it as far as we could. And then that's where we actually shave across the back of his scalp. You'll notice it that day. But you don't take all these grafts out. You don't take all these hairs out. You're going to take about 1 out of every 4 to start with. And like I said, it leaves a little red speck. A little red speck disappears in about 5 days. And the 3 hairs out of 4 that you did not remove start to grow back, so that within a week it pretty well covers this whole thing. And then you even it up with your barber can do that, or your wife can do that, and it's almost not noticeable. This is the piece, mechanical piece, that goes on the end of the machine, and this is actually the part that goes over the hair. And whoever's doing the hair transplant, whether it's a doctor or is a technician, whatever, they have to wear magnifying glasses when they do this, so that it all is very plain and clear to them. But they put this over the hair, and when they mash the button, it removes it, root and all, sends it back in here and puts it in this chamber. So this is a picture where some of these hairs have been removed. You can see that it leaves a little red speck every time it takes one out. You can also see that there's 3 or 4 hairs in between each one of those that we didn't bother, and those will grow out pretty shortly, so that you won't be able to tell any have been removed. This again is somebody that's had a lot of them removed. See, about 1 out of every 4, but you see lots of hairs that are still left in there, and then you separate them out into 1 hair graft, 2 hair grafts, 3 hair grafts, 4 hair grafts, and then you use them appropriately. Right here you see a graft that has 1 root and 1 hair. Here is 1 root and 2 hairs, 1 root and 3 hairs. And so these are the ones that use at the very front of your scalp, in the front line, and then you can use these farther back. This person hadn't had any graft put in yet, but these are the holes that were made along those lines that we mapped out a while ago. The holes are made with a special instrument. After we measure how thick your scalp is, then we know exactly how to make the hole. This is all numb, and so you don't really feel anything when they do that. In fact is, I've had this procedure and I slept through the whole thing. This is the part of the apparatus that you can suck your graft up into and then lay it up to the hole that you make in the front of your scalp and hit a button, and the air pressure actually plants that graft. This is, here's the grafts right here on this glove, and they're sucking them up one at a time, and then they're going to place them in this patient's scalp. And this is the machine right here, and we are placing it into a previously made hole in the scalp, just like planting onions. These are where the holes have already been made, get ready to do it, and this is where the actual graft has gone in right here. And the upper part of the root of the graft has a little fat on it, and that's visible, and that goes away in about 36 hours and leaves a red speck. That red speck goes away in about 12 days. In this case right here, we see lots of little white specks, and that's where all these grafts, hundreds and hundreds of them, have been placed. And incidentally, these grafts, they can be pulled out for about 5 days. So we usually wait a week before we do anything to the hair that might cause them to come out. So they have to attach. So this is, all these are grafts right in here. You can see. And then this is, again, these are all grafts right here. Those little red specks that go, the little red specks in the back of the scalp, they go away in 5 days. These red specks up here go away in about 12 days. Again, here we are. This is where they've all been grafted. This is usually covered by a loose, very loose baseball cap or something until these little red specks fall out. This person, this is where they've actually had the graft taken out, right here. And this is day 1, this is day 5, and this is day 8. You can tell that the other hairs have started to grow back. You can't really tell at the end of a week that the patient has had any work done back there. And this is where, these are where the grafts were taken out. This patient had a bald spot that looked like an upside down cowboy boot, and you can see it here. And this is where the grafts were put in. And then this was day 5. Pretty well most of the red specks have disappeared. And this is day 8, and don't really see any red specks at that point. Now this hair that you put in, it will grow. At first you can just barely feel it. It'll feel a little bit like you're rubbing your hand over steel wool, and it will grow out. It usually grows out to be about 1/4 of an inch long or so. And then you'll begin to notice little black specks on your pillowcase in the morning, and that's because the hair that you put in will eventually be extruded by the hair follicle, and it'll grow a new hair. And so then that hair has to grow in. So by the end of 5 months, you have hair that's a couple of inches long. By the end of a year, you just got normal hair. This person right here, pre-op, got quite a bit of thinning all the way back in here. Lost a lot of hair in here, and these areas right here, he's lost a lot of hair. And so you go in, and in his particular case, went in and grafted all in here. You notice we tried to make it a little bit irregular in here so it'll grow out more natural. The hairs have to be placed in a certain direction according to where they are on the scalp so that it'll look natural. So it's important for your tech doing this to have a very good idea how it's going to lay when it's all done. And then there's that patient in about 6 months. As time goes on, it gets thicker and longer. And I should say there are certain types of shampoos that you can use that will make it thicker looking. And it actually is thicker, make your other hair thicker looking. And then we also use special light helmets that will help you get, and they will help your old hair to look thicker and last longer, and also help your new hair.
Well, thank you, Dr. Fletcher. I appreciate you going over the hair transplant procedure with us today.
You bet.